How you doing, everybody? This is Daniel Glass from New York City. Play with the Brian Setzer Orchestra, Royal Crown Review, many others here at Kennesaw, Georgia, at the Crescent Cymbal Nerve Center. Happy to be here. I grew up in Honolulu, Hawaii. Very unusual place, different from where a lot of people grow up, and but a wonderful place. It was multicultural before the word multicultural was in use, so got exposed to a lot of different cultures, Asian cultures, Western cultures, Hawaiian, Polynesian type of cultures, just a ton of different stuff. So I think I was really open, and the funny thing is my parents didn't have a television set, so they were kind of radical for the time, and although my sister and I were very resistant and pissed off at my parents, what we did was we listened to the radio 24 hours a day, nonstop. So I was in a really interesting environment growing up in Hawaii, and I was able to soak up a ton of stuff, plus everything that was on the radio, at that time. I had an early proclivity for the drums, the pots and pans, like so many others. When I was little, banging on stuff, we used to go to Chinese restaurants, and my chopsticks would be confiscated within 30 seconds. Proud to say. My mother is a very creative woman. She was a dancer when I was young, ballet and modern, and she was real serious about it. She studied with Martha Graham in New York and all that. So even though we were in Hawaii, she was continuing her career path as a dancer through the university and other stuff. When I was about 5, she broke her leg in a dancing accident. She shattered her ankle, actually, and that ended her career as a performer, although she's continued to be very creative, but she had all these creative tendencies. So she started taking drum lessons, and she started taking me to her drum lessons when I was about 7. And I think the teacher who ended up being my first teacher, who was the principal percussionist of the Honolulu Symphony, said, all right, when he's 8 or something, bring him back and we'll start him on lessons. So I took 5 years of snare drum and timpani from when I was 8 until I was 13 before I got my first drum set. Well, as hip as it sounds that I took snare drum and timpani for 5 years, I really wasn't a very good student at all. I was into rock and roll like a lot of other people. And I was into drumming, but I didn't take it all that seriously. And but I did want to get a drum set, and when I was 13, my parents finally broke down. I think I was in 7th grade. They bought me my first kit. It was a very cool Sonar kit, actually. I immediately joined a band. And so at that point, all through, from intermediate school through high school, I continued to be in marching band, jazz band, orchestra. I did shows, kind of anything that they were doing at the school. I was the guy, the go-to guy. And but I also played in rock bands, and that became my my main extracurricular activity. So how I got to Los Angeles was, I actually went to college in Boston at a place called Brandeis University. And again, I wasn't even considering studying music. I was going to get a degree in psychology. My father's a psychologist. But the more I did the psychology stuff, the less I found it of interest. And I was always in bands and always continued to play drums. And so when I got out of school, I started studying with a guy named Bob Galati, who's a very well-known jazz drummer in the Boston area. He actually went to Berkeley at the same time as Steve Smith did and studied under Alan Dawson. And he just blew my mind. And in 5 months of studying with him, I said, all right, I'm just going to turn left or right and I'm going to go for this music thing, because I've been doing this my whole life, and that's the one thing, no matter what else I'm doing, I'm always playing music. So took me a couple years traveling, and went back to Hawaii, lived with my folks, earned enough money to be able to move to Los Angeles. But in '91, I moved to Los Angeles. I went to the Dick Rove School of Music, which is no longer around, but it was a terrific school. I got to study with great people like Steve Houghton, Emil Richards, Chuck Silverman, John Ferraro, great people, great musicians who were doing it in LA, top people who were, even if they weren't name guys necessarily, they were working guys. And they really taught us about the skill set that you need to be a professional musician. So I just did 1 year there, and then I, for a couple of years freelanced around trying to just figure out what was going to happen. Did a million different kinds of things, trying things like we all do when we get out of music school. And in 1994, I had the opportunity. 93, I had the opportunity to join a jazz group called the Jazz Jury. And that was a subset of Royal Crown Review. It was a side project. And within 6 months, the opportunity came up. So I jumped in with Royal Crown Review. In March 31st, 1994 was my first gig.